Welcome to Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast. I'm Michael Grosvenor.
And I'm Jack Fernino. Join us as we dig deep into Billy Joel's songs and history and what his music has meant to us. Billy Joel released his first studio album, Cold Spring Harbor, in November 1971. Almost 50 years to the day, his fans are celebrating a string of exciting new announcements.
In our most timely episode yet, we'll cover the latest developments in the Billy Joel world.
On Friday, November 5th, Billy brought his record-breaking residency back to Madison Square Garden after a nearly 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic. Also on November 5th, Billy released the Vinyl Collection Volume 1. It's a box set containing new masters of his first 6 studio albums, Songs in the Attic, and an unreleased concert from 1975.
In the lead-up to the box set, Billy also released a new animated video for scenes from an Italian restaurant.
And, in an announcement that seemed tailor-made for our co-host Michael, we learned that Billy and Metallica will soon play at the same venue on the same weekend in Las Vegas.
It's a lot at once, and we're here to share in the excitement. Join us as we dig deep into the latest and greatest Billy Joel news.
Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Edgar Winter, because it's a Frankenstein. Can we play that one, or do I have to sing the riff? Da-da-da-da.
I'm drumming the fill on my chest right now. How appropriate with just wrapping up Halloween here.
We have, on the surface, what seems like a hodgepodge of items, and we're recording it out of sequence and at the last minute because although they're very scattered, they're all very timely and everything seems to be hitting at the same time. The least timely thing we are going to go over is the new Scenes from an Italian Restaurant animated video that came out in October. And from there, we're going into a dual band announcement that seems custom made for one Michael Grosvenor.
Yes, indeed.
We're going to talk about Billy's return to Madison Square Garden from Friday night, November 5th. We don't know if there's any surprises. We don't know if there's any weird covers. We don't know if Summer Highland Falls finally beat out Vienna in the crowd choice. We'll get to that.
But also really exciting on Friday, November 5th, is the release of the Vinyl Collection Volume 1, which is the very first vinyl box set from Billy Joel that's going to encompass his 1970s records, his Songs in the Attic album, as well as a brand new, previously unreleased live show. So we're going to do an unboxing of that and go deep into what's going on with that new set as well. So a lot of exciting things happening all at once.
Now, some of you may have seen our Facebook and or YouTube unboxing, and we're going to pull a lot of the audio from that. It's going to be a little abridged version of what you saw on Friday, and then we're going to keep going. After that, we're going to dive into the 2 songs from American Music Hall 1975 that were released on YouTube, New York State of Mind and Everybody Loves You Now. All right, enough chit-chat. We got a lot to do. Let's get to letters.
Yes.
Our first one comes from Chris. This is the longest chain we've had. He wrote us back in August, and we finished corresponding in October. He writes, "Good evening, Michael and Jack. Thank you so much for making this podcast. This is a labor of love, and it shows for all of us Billy Joel superfans. I'm writing to you two about the Eye of the Storm episode. Way back in the spring of 2001, I was almost done with the spring quarter of my 8th grade U.S. history class at Jonas E. Salk Middle School in Levittown, New York. My teacher, Miss McKevitt, let us watch the music video for We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel on VHS as a treat for finishing our unit on the Cold War. I enjoyed the visuals as well as hearing about the important figures in each passing decade. Once that video was done, she stopped the tape just as the music video for Leningrad started. As typical 8th graders, we begged her to watch the rest of it. To this day, I still don't know if Miss McKevitt intended for us to watch Leningrad or not. Nonetheless, she let us watch it because she said this song was also about the Cold War and the differences between the ordinary lives of Americans and Russians. I was floored by the lyrical content. It hammered home how the Russians felt despair under communist rule while the Americans were under constant fear of nuclear destruction. Only when Billy meets Victor do they come to a mutual understanding and eventual friendship. What a powerful concept to learn as an 8th grader. What drove it home, literally, for me were the lines, Cold War kids were hard to kill, under their desks in an air raid drill, and the children lived in Levittown, hid in the shelters underground. After school that day, I asked my parents if both of those things happened. They said yes and explained how their schools had regular drills where they either went to fallout shelters or had to hide under their desks, depending on what alarms they heard. I had to share after you mentioned the order of the Eye of the Storm, going from We Didn't Start the Fire to Leningrad. Keep up the great work. And then we had a little back and forth. And in the back and forth, he gave us a little more, info. He said, there's definitely a pride knowing Billy Joel name-checked Levittown in Leningrad. I grew up on Long Island near Levittown. I am now located in upstate New York. My theater teacher in high school shared with us on the first day of class, freshman year, 2 Billy Joel facts. The first being that Virginia, in Only the Good Die Young, went to my high school, Holy Trinity, a Catholic school near Hicksville High School, where Billy Joel was a student. The second thing is the Village Green, referred to in Scenes from the Italian Restaurant, is located next to Holy Trinity High School. So that's cool. I knew Village Green was a real place. Pretty sure I knew that Virginia was real too. But that's pretty cool to hear that all together. Chris, thanks so much for writing in. So if you were in 8th grade in 2001, you're a little bit younger than us. Not by a depressing amount, but, a little bit. Almost curious if you watched this before or after 9/11 then. Kind of wonder how that's going to color that entire conversation and the interpretation of the song at that point. But I love to hear that an 8th grader in 2001 got floored by Leningrad. I think that's great. I think when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, this was kind of at the height of Billy Joel mania. So, you were listening to the album and, it was contemporary and everything else. And, you were going to feel a certain way about it. But yeah, it's great to hear that, that far after the album came out, it was still having that sort of impact.
It's funny too. He mentions watching the video in class, in history class. And I feel like that was a lot easier to pull off in New York, was to listen to Billy Joel songs or play Billy Joel videos. Hometown guy, a lot of love for Billy. But I actually got away with it a little bit in college myself. Recently, I was probably 5-6 years ago, I was taking just some additional college classes in Michigan and was taking a history class as well, where we happened to be talking about the Cold War. And me being the guy I am, used any opportunity to interject Billy Joel into the conversation. Told my teacher about this. I said, Billy was the first American rock star to do a full tour in America, and gave her the brief Victor spiel and told her about this documentary that just came out. Said I can bring in the DVD. I think it'd be something super relevant to class with what we're talking about. And so I let her borrow it, and she watched it, and she agreed. She's like, yeah, absolutely. We could definitely play it in one of these next classes. I said, okay, great. Just hang on to it until then. It turns out she did, but it happened to be a class that I missed for some odd reason. So I didn't get to enjoy it, but sure enough, they did play a segment of the Matter Trust documentary. Our next email comes from Jonathan Slomka. He writes, Michael and Jack, great podcast as always. Very insightful, and glad you guys let Mike Del Giudice speak openly about all things Mike, Big Shot, and Billy. I've been a regular at Mike and Big Shot shows since the early days across Long Island, and even took my family to see his rarity show on Billy's birthday. Those cuts were done to perfection. Since January 2014, I've seen nearly every MSG show and can't wait to get back again this Friday. I've missed these so much, I just couldn't wait for the next New York City one to come around. So this summer, I hopped a flight to Fenway. I got there early, and as I walked up, I could hear the sound check from the street. This quickly brought a smile to my face, and I knew I was in the right place. Billy was in good voice, and the band was in prime form. And while missing Andy was a bummer, Mike filled in perfectly on bass, which at the time was a surprise to see. It rained for 90% of the show, but we didn't care because we had Billy and his crew. Keep it up, fellas, and look forward to more of your introspective podcasts. Jonathan. Well, thanks, Jonathan. That's so great that you're going to be at this show as well. I've got so much excitement for everyone who's going to be back there. I've been lucky to see a couple of garden shows over the course of the residency. So I'm very happy that you're going to get to go to the show. And, we'd love to hear from you as well afterwards. And, we'd love to hear your report and what you experienced that night.
Yeah, you and anyone else that wants to chime in, I guess we'll do this pitch real quick at the beginning instead of the end. But, let us know how that show was. Let us know what you thought. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you've made it to that many shows. I love that you made it to Fenway and that it sounded great with Michael instead of Andy on bass. Awesome. I'm sure you're even happier than we are then that the machine's back up and running.
I know the band and crew has missed it so much. My friends Clint and Ethan, who host Metal Up Your podcast, they're touring musicians as well. They've toured with Kings of Leon, Need to Breathe, Bob Schneider. They're both currently touring with a country artist named Morgan Wade, and it's their first full-time touring gig since the pandemic. And I was just chatting with Ethan earlier tonight, and he's just about to get back on the bus to go back out for another leg. And these guys are just so grateful to be back on the road. And I know the Billy Joel Band and crew is feeling the same thing. So they are very grateful to be back out there and so glad to be playing for everybody.
And speaking of Metallica, you want to take this one?
I think that makes sense. So I'll tell you what, this breaking news here blew my mind, and you're going to find out why. Last week, they announced a weekend of shows in Las Vegas on 2 nights. One night by Billy Joel, and the other night, none other than Metallica. Now, if you've listened to any of this podcast, I'm sure you've picked up by now what a Metallica fan I am. They're up there with Billy for me. I could talk about them all day long. I try to use restraint on this podcast, but I finally have a legitimate reason.
You use restraint. I use the little razor blade thing in audition.
Yeah. Tacticality. You used restraint on my behalf. But here it is. So February, Billy and Metallica are playing 2 nights at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And I've got a little press announcement here. It says Metallica and Billy Joel to headline Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, February 25th and 26th, 2022. 2 epic shows, one unforgettable weekend. Metallica on Friday, February 25th, Billy Joel on Saturday, February 26th. Tickets go on sale Friday, October 29th at 10 a.m. 2 of the most iconic names of music history are taking over Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas for one epic weekend this February. The weekend kicks off Friday, February 25th with an unforgettable performance from one of the most influential and successful rock bands in history, Metallica, who will be joined by Greta Van Fleet. Then, one of the most popular recording artists and respected entertainers in the world, Billy Joel, will perform at the stadium Saturday, February 26th. And then it goes into some pre-sale ticketing information.
I'm really curious to see how many other people you see at both shows. Also really curious to see if there's a special guest at the Billy show.
Yeah, Billy's been known for the special guests. He always has somebody typically at the Garden. And, I've seen Joe Elliott come up on stage and Steven Tyler, you name it, so many people. And the last time Billy played Chicago, James Hetfield was at the show. There's a picture of the 2 of them. But I would love to see James come up or Kirk come up and play or something like that. Would be a lot of fun to see at a Billy show.
All right, here's my off-the-wall prediction. Chainsaw starts doing AC/DC. It grinds to a halt and Hetfield comes out and either finishes it or goes into battery or something. Just for a second.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about the shows after they happen, but yeah. I am ecstatic that I'll be there. Haven't seen Billy since Portland 2017, end of 2017, I think it was. Maybe end of 2018, I forget which now, but it's been a couple years since I've seen Billy. And Metallica was my last big show, S&M 2 in 2019. So I'm so excited to see my 2 favorites back to back. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. As we said later on, we're going to get into the box set, and this release is sort of tied into the box set. It's the now new official video for Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. You can find it on YouTube on Billy Joel's channel. The Billy Joel Scenes from an Italian Restaurant official music video. And it, mentions Off of the Stranger is included in the brand new vinyl collection Volume 1, available November 5th. So it's an animated video, all 7 minutes and 32 seconds. What'd you think of it, Michael?
I dug quite a bit of it. I like the color choice. I think the animation is fun. The only thing that bugged me was their use of Billy Joel imagery.
Yeah.
Was not period correct. Again, I'm a weird stickler for that stuff. It's a studio recording from 77, but you see, 2012 Billy, and you see 1990 Billy and 1987 Billy, but you don't really see 1977 or 78 Billy. And I would have loved the footage they used of Billy to have been at least from the late 70s.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest with you, I could have done with no Billy in this and let the story sit on its own. What I did like about it is it's sort of set up like an animated comic book where you see it go from panel to panel and occasionally, well, for a lot of the time, the people move, but then it goes to the next panel and things like that. I guess it's a very modern looking video, which, to me, I would have loved to have seen it, look older, although I don't know how they would have done that with a cartoon. Beautifully rendered, without a doubt.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I think the best part was the Brenda and Eddie part. Just the motion of the animation really fit the tempo of the song exceptionally well right there. Mm-hmm. But it was weird. It was a little jarring to see them drive, and then at one point they're in modern Times Square, not 1970s Times Square, which is a completely different scenario.
Totally different Times Square. Yeah.
So definitely worth checking out. Just check that out on YouTube. The audio is all the same, but the visuals are all new. And now on to what's new in the Billy Joel world, starting with this.
And that sound you heard was the opening to Miami 2017 as we kicked off the return to Madison Square Garden. Our good friend Eric Fellon sent that to us, and that was the real-time opening of the show just last night.
Now, unfortunately, Michael and I weren't there. I like to think of myself just as during Woodstock, Miles Davis was not at the concert, but was instead recording Bitches Brew. Instead of being at the show, I was very busy editing this episode together instead. Yes, I just compared myself to Miles Davis. I want to console myself somehow that I couldn't make it up to the Garden for this.
You were kind of, relatively speaking, within stone's throw, or at least a train ride.
Yeah, I could have made it, but we know people that did, and we certainly got to see many, many glimpses of it on Facebook all night.
Every post I saw was just pure joy and excitement. Everyone was so relieved to be back to it. We've thrown around this word normalcy as we are trying to come out of the pandemic here. For a lot of us in this community, live music is one of the most normal and everyday things we all do. I know I can speak for Jenny and I. We would go to dozens of shows a year. So I can imagine the feeling of everyone being back at Madison Square Garden, enjoying that common bond of a Billy Joel concert. The reaction I was seeing from everyone on Facebook this morning and last night was evident of that.
Yeah, it was great, seeing pictures of the Retold meetup ahead of time, seeing people post pictures and video. It was also fun, now that I know more people in the group, seeing people pop up in other people's photos and videos. Let's talk about the show itself. Andy Ciccone, of course, was back on stage, so it was the full Billy band.
And it was a strong set list, and Billy and the band came out with a great set list, 25 songs in total. The show opened with Miami 2017, appropriately. We went into Moving Out, My Life, New York State of Mind, which he played in tribute to 9/11 firefighter Neil Sco. Everybody Loves You Now, Zanzibar, Vienna, Allentown, Pressure, The Downeaster Alexa, The Entertainer, She's Always a Woman, Don't Ask Me Why, All for Lena, Sometimes a Fantasy, The River of Dreams with an interlude of ZZ Top's Tush with Mike Del Giudice on vocals, Only the Good Die Young, Nessun Dorma, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, Piano Man, and then we have there the encore break, then We Didn't Start the Fire, Uptown Girl, It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, Big Shot, and You May Be Right.
So no huge surprises here, although obviously All for Lane and Sometimes a Fantasy must have been a great treat for the audience.
That's what caught my eye most about that was the back-to-back Glass Houses tracks there. That would have been a lot of fun. And the Downeaster Alexa is another great one that doesn't get pulled out all the time as well.
And unfortunately, no special guests. After a year plus of conjecture and hope from so many of us, Liberty DeVito did not take to the drums, nor did anybody else outside the band get up and perform anything.
That doesn't terribly surprise me. I think everyone's still being very cautious within the Billy camp. You know, the band and crew have a strict protocol, I'm sure, that they're following. And, you know, to bring in somebody from the outside to come up on stage, it's probably just a little soon for that. But I'm sure in due time, we're going to get some special guests coming back to these shows.
It's a shame, but yeah, it's definitely understandable. So we've all heard how much, a lot of the fans loved it. Let's see what the critics had to say. I'm going to read some excerpts from 2 reviews that popped up this morning. First one is from Rolling Stone. It starts off talking about the opener, Miami 2017, and it says, when Joel wrote the tune in 1976, he predicted that the Broadway lights would turn out in 2017. He was just 3 years off. The set list was largely familiar to anyone who's seen Joel at MSG since he started playing monthly shows there in January 2014, but the long layoff breathed new life into well-worn tunes like My Life, Moving Out, Allentown, and Pressure. Even the non-hits, like All for Lena, Everybody Loves You Now, and Sometimes a Fantasy, were greeted with thunderous applause. It felt like seeing old friends after years apart. After She's Always a Woman, Joel paused to address a particularly befuddling lyric in the song. I'm still trying to figure out what that line means, he said. She can't be convicted, she earned her degree. I don't think a degree is getting anybody out of jail. What the hell was I talking about? She can't be convicted? She can't be expelled? She can't get detention. She's earned her degree, but she was always a woman to me. There's no real precedent in rock history for Joel's monthly Madison Square Garden residency. It seemed like a fun experiment when he started it nearly 8 years ago, but it's gone on to become a key part of the New York City cultural scene, as important as any Broadway musical or jazz club. And then the New York Post, some excerpts from that. Obviously, both of them, touched on some of the same points. So I'll pick out a few things that the Post said. That Joel did one of the most New York of moves by acknowledging the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and the Concert for New York City benefit that he played at the Garden in October 2001. He displayed a fireman's helmet, and that was Neil Scow's helmet, on his piano that was found on 9/11. I just thought we should have it here tonight, he said, before launching into New York State of Mind, having a money moment early in the show. Even the lesser-known tunes that only Joel loyalists would know were greeted enthusiastically from an audience that surely consisted of many repeat residency attendees. And even songs they've heard 1,000 times before, such as She's Always a Woman, which brought on one of the biggest crowd sing-alongs, sounded fresh again as if they were hearing them live for the first time. Joel himself looked renewed as well, having shed some 50 pounds since we last saw him at the Garden. And in addition to the natural excitement to play at the Garden, the 72-year-old star displayed more energy and endurance, bouncing around on the stage to We Didn't Start the Fire, Uptown Girl, and It's Still Rock and Roll to Me in the encore. Speaking of those lesser-known tunes, I don't know why I was so fixated on All for Lena and Sometimes a Fantasy as the surprise songs. I guess because they were both from the same album, and I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I totally overlooked that he did Everybody Loves You Now as well. That must have been a real treat.
That's a great song. And to see songs that he's been playing for 50 years still making appearances in the set list, talk about the timelessness of Billy's music. We're just celebrating 50 years of Billy right now, and the 50th anniversary of Cold Spring Harbor just happening. And, whenever we see songs like Everybody Loves You Now and She's Got Away, which were released when he was 22 years old, pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, it also, as you mentioned, this is the 50th anniversary of Cold Spring Harbor, which was actually this month anyway, so it was only a few days ago. But also, Everybody Loves You Now was one of the only digital releases from the vinyl collection box set. It was that New York State of Mind. So I guess it's also appropriate that he hit that one as well.
Absolutely. It's great to see him and the band having fun again. That's one positive. I think that, not that they weren't prior to the pandemic, but I think the long pause really made everyone miss it a lot more and really enjoy the moment a lot more. And, It gave everyone some time to just kind of woodshed a little bit and kind of dial in the performance. And a lot of live shows from bands I've been seeing lately online, like a lot of bands are just playing better than ever.
There's more of an appreciation for it. I think there was a great recharging of batteries. Certainly a lot of artists wrote a lot during the pandemic, and we got a spate of great albums in 2021. But, for Billy Joel, that means not taking for granted these monthly shows for him and the band. And it sounds like everyone knew it and everyone appreciated that, both on stage and off.
Absolutely.
And while we couldn't see Billy live, at least Michael got to listen to that great box set this weekend. Mine's still in transit, but we did our unboxing video a couple days ago before we recorded this podcast. And from here, we're going to give you an alternate cut of that unboxing. Since the other one was a video, we included a lot of, visuals and looking at things. And in this version, you'll get a little more commentary, along with a good running tally of everything you'll find in the box.
Without any spoilers, I just want to say how excited I was to tear into this thing for the first time. Every time there's been something new in the Billy Joel world as far as a physical release, I'm always insanely excited. And it's been a while, so this was really exciting for me and for us. So we hope you like it.
A new release just dropped. It's the Vinyl Collection Volume 1, which Michael has been itching, I say, to open. But he's waited just for all of you so we could all open this together. Check it out, see what's in there, see what the records look like, see what the hype sticker looks like.
This is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. I know there had been talks for years about reissuing Billy Joel on vinyl properly as the resurgence happened, and they did it with The Stranger. There was a pressing of Piano Man out there as well. But this is the first time that a Sony proper release has been issued of Billy's first half of the catalog. And as a Billy fan and a vinyl fan, I couldn't be more excited about digging into this finally.
We're getting 7 albums here. It's Cold Spring Harbor through 52nd Street. And then it's Songs in the Attic. And then the new release is Live at the Great American Music Hall in 1975. And that's pre-Lords, pretty much. It's only Doug Stegmeyer on there. It's Doug in the original road band.
Yeah, this was the very first run that Doug ever did with Billy. I'm personally excited to hear Doug cutting his teeth with these songs.
So let's do this together. Mike, tell us about what we see on the front there. Tell us what that hype sticker says.
The hype sticker says Billy Joel, the Vinyl Collection Volume 1, 8 vinyl box set, including Cold Spring Harbor, Piano Man, Street Life Serenade, Turnstiles, The Stranger, 52nd Street, Songs in the Attic, and the previously unreleased Live at the Great American Music Hall, 2 LPs, plus a 50-plus page booklet highlighting Billy Joel's early career. And the cover is of the box is a fairly simple cover, but I like it. Billy's records in the 70s and 80s had that classic Columbia Records red with gold logo circling around it and the black font. And so essentially what you're seeing here is a Billy Joel record on a turntable. If memory serves, this looks pretty much like a Sony turntable from back in the day. On the back, you've got Billy Joel in white and then the album collection volume 1 in red. Just a nice clean title. On the side of the box set, you're going to see the spines for each album as well as catalog numbers, and there's the booklet there as well.
And those spines are true to the originals, too. You can really tell by Songs in the Attic.
I haven't even opened this yet, but already from what I can tell, they did a great job matching it to the original. Then I'm going to flip it around to the back here. So we've got what appears to be a paper or cardboard backing that isn't necessarily adhered to the box, but it's just kind of laid in behind it under the shrink wrap. And so we've got the 8 album covers, including the brand new Great American Music Hall cover right there. And we've got a little write-up from Anthony DeCurtis at Rolling Stone, which I'll read really quick. It says, decades are never nearly as delineated as they appear on a calendar. They leak into each other and overlap, sometimes lurching backwards, sometimes forwards. In the case of Billy Joel, the 70s began in 1971 and came to something like a triumphant end in 1981. The arc of this collection, then traces the path of a young artist in search of his voice and his vision. It tells the story of a young man battling for respect and attaining it on his own impressive, uncompromising terms. He started the decade as an unknown and ended it as a superstar, one of the biggest rock stars in the world. Around the time of his breakthrough album, The Stranger, Joel would end his live shows by screaming to his audience, "Don't take any shit from anybody." This collection contains the music of a man who never did. And again, that's from Anthony DeCurtis, contributing editor of Rolling Stone.
And I like that. I like it gives a good framework for jumping glass houses for volume 1 and going straight to Songs in the Attic, because of course Songs in the Attic comprises songs from the previous albums. Absolutely. Well, the previous first 4 anyway. All right, crack it open, my friend.
Well, here we go. What do you
Use
say?
your teeth if you gotta.
I think the best place to start is going to be the booklet. And I don't know if you could see by the way it was in the box, but the albums themselves are in chronological order, starting with Cold Spring Harbor. And wow, at first glance, this is a really sharp booklet, almost like a cracked leather look. The first 4 covers are on top, and you've got Billy Joel, the collection volume 1 underneath it, the additional 4 album covers on the bottom, and the covers themselves have like a high gloss finish. And then the back of it is just more of that pattern.
Talk paper stock to me. How thick is that booklet?
You know, I'm going to liken it to a tour book. If you've bought like one of the tour books from like the Garden Residency or anything like that, it very much reminds me of the heft and the paper stock that you're going to find in that. Nice. Very, very high quality.
And that looks like it's about the same width, I guess, of the records as well. So they all sit. Do they all sit equally in the box?
Yeah, they do. So it's exactly the same dimensions as a record. So, and you're looking probably about the thickness of, say, Songs in the Attic, because it's just a little thicker than a standard LP. There's the opening.
And then, so that's from the man himself, huh?
See, it says, "It's been a long time coming, putting all of these albums in one package. It's a little intimidating, actually. This seems like a lot of work. I remember looking at each individual album and remember how much writing and recording and time and arranging and producing went into each album." Billy Joel. So he certainly is reminded of all the labor that went into making these records. Just at first couple glance, I mean, they've got some incredible photos.
Are those new photos, or have you seen these before?
There are some here that I've never seen, and I'm just on the first page.
Is that one whole essay that starts on the facing page and goes on to the right, or is that 2 different subjects?
It's a few page piece that goes for quite a few pages. So yeah, Anthony DeCurtis writes the entire piece in here, and it goes for several pages. Now, granted, there are a lot of big photos and memorabilia peppered throughout. It's laid out very nicely. And what's underneath that first page here, it looks like it says Billy Joel discography on Columbia Records. You know, like a record of like all of his releases that I don't know what they were using it for, but I see singles, I see In Harmony 2, I see all the albums. So it's like his full comprehensive set of releases and release dates on Columbia Records. That's pretty cool.
45s as well, you're saying?
Yeah, because I can see like This Is the Time with Getting Closer, Baby Grand, and Big Man on Mulberry Street. We Didn't Start the Firehouse of Blue Light. So yeah, and it's got like all the release dates of these singles as well. In all honesty, I would love a copy of that because that would help our research. Because this is like a one-stop shop of exactly when everything got released. And you can only see pieces, parts of it. But wow, very cool. Archival photos peppered in with ticket stubs. And
what's that pink in the side? That's a ticket stub?
That's a ticket stub from Rider College, Lawrenceville, New Jersey. December 4th, 1977. Student pricing is $4. All others, though, you're going to pay $8.
Oh, boy. I tell you, really breaking the bank for those non-matriculating fools.
Yeah, right?
Stay in school, kids.
Yeah. All this memorabilia and these tickets, everything, the quality of the scanning and the printing is like absolutely second to none. Crystal clear. You know, you've got the Marisol Festival 1972. There's a Piano Man era thing. Backstage pass from The Stranger. And there's a handful of photos that we've seen, you know, over the years, some of these shots that have floated around. And also throughout, there's peppered in quite a few quotes. You've got one from Tony Bennett, Ray Charles. You got Sting here, Roger Daltrey. Another thing scanned in here, Billy's birth certificate. Certificate of birth, William Martin Joel, May 9th, 1949.
They don't have his social security and credit card number hanging around there.
No, unfortunately, no. But some of these documents are just kind of like overlaid on top of images. So they're kind of hard to read. You kind of got to look closely, but I think it's a fun additional thing to throw in there.
You know, if you're looking at the two pages together, the picture will take up 3/4. So like a page and a half. And then the last vertical column would be the text.
There's the Hassles getting some love. And there's another shot of Billy, presumably at his home, his office. They got the piano and some gold records on the wall. Quote from Pink. They didn't reach out to us for our quotes. I don't know.
You know, guys, it's okay. We'll be here for volume 2. But
yeah, a scan of a 45 of Nocturne, made in Holland. So this is a Holland LP 45. I know that Cold Spring Harbor, the full album, got released in Holland on Philips, but I've never seen that particular piece. That's really cool. So they legitimately went into the archives and pulled out some great stuff. And so after that essay peppered with the memorabilia, we're getting into the albums. So each starts with a nice big shot of the album cover, and then it's got a write-up on each record, followed by lyrics, and again, some additional memorabilia that's period correct. You know me, I'm a stickler for that. She's Got Away, a single, Phillips. So Nocturne must have been the B-side to She's Got Away. That's my guess. We've got some more Piano Man things. We got a little keychain. It says Columbia Stereo, Billy Joel Piano Man, in the shape of a record. And then it looks like a Spanish record, Hombre del Piano. We got a quote from John Mayer here.
Slight tangent, but didn't you find or didn't you pick up a 45 with a Spanish language label earlier this year?
Yes. It's a 12-inch single from Mexico of You May Be Right. And with that one, they extended it by 2.5 minutes, the song.
Right.
By just looping a section or two. But what's cool, it's on opaque red vinyl, which I like.
Oh, I like those.
Concert poster from Bucknell's Davis Gym, December 1st, 1976.
That is one freaky deaky looking picture, man.
Yeah. Paul McCartney quote, Garth Brooks.
The Paul McCartney and Garth Brooks quote, they look like they're the only ones so far that got their own page.
Yeah, you're right. I believe you're right. Mm-hmm.
And I like that because it would be, Paul McCartney was a huge influence on Billy Joel, and then Billy Joel went on to influence Garth Brooks.
If I'm going to read any one of these quotes, I think it's got to be Paul McCartney, right?
Yeah, that's acceptable.
Is that fair?
Well, yeah.
Okay. So Paul says, I love Just the Way You Are. I think that's my favorite. I just think it's a really beautiful song. And people have often asked me, is there a song somebody else wrote you wish you had written? And that's one of them. So that's high praise from a Beatle. And we got the Streetlight Serenade 8-track. That pretty with the name Patty written on it, which I probably have one of those too. And then here we go. The Turnstiles album, 1976.
Very nice. Yeah, those essays are getting bigger and bigger.
They sure are.
Maybe as a bonus, we'll do an ASMR reading of them. You can hear you turning the pages and everything.
Yeah. This is the first one I really glanced at, but these appear to be written by Billy.
Another 45 there.
Germany, Say Goodbye to Hollywood.
I feel like we've seen a lot of these before, but I haven't seen any of the ones from other countries. Really.
Right. A lot of these I haven't seen either. In Europe, they did a lot more picture sleeves than they did in America. I think with Billy, it was only like Glass Houses, Through, The Bridge, and maybe Stormfront that had the picture sleeves. Everything else was just a Columbia plain sleeve.
It's a nice layout.
It really is. It's very well done. The colors are really nice. Mm-hmm. They complement each other, the color choices throughout. And it's just a very high quality print. See, what's nice is after the lyrics is usually a full page spread of memorabilia, records, photos, and things like that. So it kind of bookends the front end of it's the album cover. The back end of it is associated memorabilia that goes along with it. Maxwell House Coffee and J.C. Penney present the Piano Man, Billy Joel.
Man, what do I have to do to get a coffee company to sponsor me? Send me over some chock full of nuts, man.
Now we're getting into 52nd Street here.
Now, what's that writing in the background on the turquoise page?
It's the same kind of thing with every album, and it's typed. I'm having a hard time deciphering what it is. I can read some of the words, but there's no context as to what sort of document these are. Now, this is what's cool. On the flip side of it, underneath the lyrics, the track sheet for a 2-inch for the recording let's see, DSR Productions, something. Yeah, it's hard to. The Entertainer talking. So this must be something else. Must not be The Stranger, but I see Moog, piano, electric guitar.
Maybe it's a live track.
Yeah, it might be a live recording from something. Now we're getting into songs in the attic land.
It looks like in lieu of lyrics on the other side, are those the liner notes from the original where he kind of talks about where they were recorded and
they absolutely are.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
I've loved these days. 1976. Hello, Jimmy Carter. Goodbye, gasoline. It was fun growing up in the great spoiled bratdom of America. Yep. I'm guessing they left lyrics out because they're all on other records. It's kind of a waste of space to have it twice. Some more credits here. And then we have product direction, Gretchen Brennison and Mary Thayer. Art direction and design, Edward O'Dowd. And then we have a different photo credits from the page. Reese Clark contributed, I see.
Oh.
Yeah. And then we got a thank you page. Todd Kamler, Claire Mercury, Lee Yesman, Myrna Suarez, Brian Ruggles, Steve Cohen, Kyle Ruggles, Richard Elcock, Vic Anasini, Angelina Capodanno, Scott Carter, Frank Harkins, Lynn Cope, Lisa Murchys, Kelly Sipos, Rita Sato, Richard Story, and Tom Tierney. Special thanks to Eric Fellon, Paul Fierro, and Liz Weingart for memorabilia and artifacts from their personal collections. And I know those three, those are friends of ours from the Billy Joel Completely Retold group. So very cool that they were able to contribute to this and get a special thank you in the liner notes here. That's very cool. And then below that, we've got this great picture of Jeff Schock. And it says, this box set would not have been possible without the tireless work of our friend Jeff Schock. It is dedicated to his memory. He's been with me since 1976. He was a tour manager, art director. He was in record promotion, management, production, you name it, he did it. He was a big, tall guy. He used to roam around in front of the stage taking pictures of everybody. And you might have seen him if you've seen our shows before. Anyway, we're going to miss him a lot. And that was Billy at Madison Square Garden, November 18th, 2017, right after Jeff passed away. This set here is something that Jeff started to spearhead before he passed away.
Okay.
So he was working on this project, getting it going, getting it off the ground. That year, he and I were actually in regular contact talking about vinyl reissues and some of the licensed things that had come out over the years. And he didn't outright say it, but I had a feeling he was working on something just based on a few things he said. And this was the project. And after he had passed away, it kind of sat on the shelf for a little while. But fortunately, Billy's team and the folks at Columbia Records and Sony Music picked it back up, and the results of it are this great set that came out today. So what do you say? Shall we get into the albums themselves?
Yeah, let's see these records, man.
So we're going to start from 1971 here. Cold Spring Harbor.
Now, if I remember correctly, the Columbia reissue, the photo is cropped
right
a little differently than the family productions.
It's
Can
cropped
you tell?
much tighter. Yeah.
So would this be the Columbia framing, do you think, or the original?
This is the original framing. On the Columbia framing, you don't see his hand. So this is the very original artwork as it was on the Family Productions release. But I am willing to bet that this is the 1983 mix. I'm going to see. Yes, it is. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I can see on the back because this is the 1983 credits. I do see finished July to September 1983 at Fidelity Studios in Studio City, California. So for those of you who've been clamoring for that 1971 original version to get put back out there, I'm sorry, you're not going to find it here. And that doesn't surprise me as much as, the Billy lore of that original 71 version. The one the general public and the market has known since 1983 is that version.
Well, it's back to needle drops on YouTube for me.
Right.
All right, so I see the red label.
Yep. So it's the classic Billy Joel red label.
Oh, wait, but is it missing something?
It indeed is. There is no more Family Productions label. Font is a little different than they were back in the 70s. It's a little bolder, especially with the title.
Are these 180?
No, they are a little thinner. Say they're standard weight.
Like standard or like flimsy 80s standard?
Standard. They've got a little thickness to it. So this is exactly how the 83 version looked. And what I like too is they're even logo correct with how the logo looked in 83 in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
With the walking eye and the Columbia with lowercase letters up top. That's different than the logo that they used in the last 20 years or so.
Is the font on the back a little different, or is that just from here?
I think it's pretty similar, but honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if this was just retyped in a closed font. I hate to speculate, but they all have individual barcodes, which means, to me, wouldn't surprise me if individually these end up getting released as individuals. So now Piano Man's the first one with a custom sleeve, which is correct, because the original did not have, Cold Spring Harbor did not have a custom sleeve. And it's, again, period correct. One side's just black, but the other side here.
Very nice.
Yep, nice credits.
Once again, very sharp. Yeah. Especially black on white, like they're white on black like that, can be a little tricky.
Yep. Here's the record. Oh, they even kept it. Okay, cool. So on Piano Man and Street Life Serenade, instead of side 1 and side 2, it said one side and another side. But yeah, these look just really sharp, really well presented. Everything looks just nice and crisp and clear. Can't wait to hear these, honestly. Now we're getting into Street Life 74. The artwork just looks incredible.
That looks especially vibrant.
Yeah. My beef always with a lot of these reissues, I'm not going to name labels or anything, but they licensed the recording, and I feel like a lot of it, the artwork they got was just kind of second rate. These, it's like, okay, Sony went into the archives, found the masters, used the masters, on everything, because it just looks, perfect.
Now, wasn't there something with the Street Life cover when they put it out later that the top, the writing on the top was cropped differently? Yeah.
So in later releases, like the 98 CD release, Billy Joel's Street Life Serenade was in the blue, in the top of the sky there. So, but this is how it did look in its original form.
So once again, like Cold Spring Harbor, true to how you would have seen it in the early 70s.
100%. Turnstiles. Wow, this looks really good.
Again, so sharp. I think with the exception of you and maybe a few other people, we all have secondhand versions of these records, or the original ones people bought back in the 70s. I don't think I've ever seen.
No, this looks clearer than the original, honestly.
Oh, does it? Okay.
It's up there. It's very...
Yeah, I thought maybe it was just because it was new.
Yeah, no, it looks really good.
Yeah.
And this one should have a custom sleeve in here, and I see it does.
Now the question is, are the lyrics going to be easier to read? No.
A little bit. I know, right? I know, you called it. In person, they're slightly... I have a pressing that's a darker green. That makes it easier, but true to the original, though, these are you got to work at it. Moving on, 77, we got the Stranger, right? Now, I believe... this is the 2008 positioning, because if I'm not mistaken, the original 77 one, the text was a little smaller. It had a little more space in the middle. And what I'm excited to see in the 2008 version, this got left off, but there's the photo credits of who everyone is. Yeah, so far these are all like exactly like well done replicas of the original. Honestly, this is the best looking Billy vinyl product I've seen since the originals. We're gonna go into 52nd Street. Here we go. Billy sitting down at the classic insert, sitting with the trumpet inside the diner. I feel like they brighten the photos. Like they don't look as dark.
Yeah, Doug especially, I think.
Yep. So these are definitely easier to see, but they look really good. Doug Stegmeyer bass, yep. Liberty DeVito drums, Phil Ramone producer, Richie Canada saxophones, clarinet, and organ, Mr. Steve Kahn guitars. Now we are getting into 1981. Everything here you see is chronological order by artist. So that part of me is like, Songs in the Attic should not be before Glass Houses. But I get why. Absolutely, because the songs are all connected to the early albums. So here we have it. And it looks fantastic.
Is it a little brighter?
It feels like it might pop just a shade more. Now this is the first gatefold. And there we have it.
Very nice.
True to the original. I'm really blown away with how good it looks.
Most of us that bought these records secondhand, again, have never seen the album art this crisp.
So I believe this has the lyrics. If I'm not mistaken. Yep, lyrics on one side and the rest of the liner notes on the other. The one difference here is the original was on more of a matte cardstock. This is more of like a semi-gloss, which is like your standard insert. And here we go.
There it is.
Original sleeve. Like, kudos to the team at Sony Legacy and Columbia Records and Billy's team, because they just are knocking it out of the park with how good this all looks. And so the final piece of this box set, live at the Great American Music Hall, 1975. There it is, for the first time ever.
I don't know what I think of that shot. It's good, but like, he looks so distressed.
Yeah,
he looks a little haggard.
I mean, I would think that it's from one of the shows that this was recorded from.
I'd imagine that's why it has that sort of mic there.
Yeah, that's a quite different mic than a usual stage mic. The back is all in silver with black and white text behind it, or in front of it, with the credits, or I'm sorry, the track listing up top. Here's the credits on it. It says recorded live for Columbia Records / CBS by Ron Mallow and Mike Stewart with DSR Productions. Okay, that's what that reel-to-reel said, DSR Productions. So maybe that's...
okay.
This. Maybe it was this. DSR Productions / Devonshire Sound Studios at the Great American Music Hall, San Francisco, California, June 1975. Produced for release by Bruce Dickinson and John Jackson. Mixed by Frank Filippini at Right Track Studios, New York. Cover photo, Jim Marshall Photography. Art direction and design, Edward O'Dowd. Special thanks to Jeff Schock. And here's the band. Billy Joel, piano, keyboards, and vocals. Don Evans, acoustic and electric guitars. Reese Clark, drums. Doug Stegmeyer, bass. Johnny Almond, horns and keyboards. All songs written by Billy Joel and published by Joel Songs admin by Albo Music Corp., except for the excerpts of, the other tracks that are in here, which is...
There's like a Joe Cocker impression.
Yeah, You Are So Beautiful, Benny and the Jets, Delta Lady, which are just fun interludes of, this was a common trope that Billy Joel would pull out in the 70s, and what was that show in 71 that we...
Oh, right, in New York, where he said, oh, you guys like impressions, huh?
Yeah, he's like, oh, you like impressions.
Yeah.
And like that, we think that might have kind of stuck with him. And he did that quite a bit before his sets got so robust, there was just no room for it. This recording has never been released anywhere. No bootlegs of it exist. So this was something that was just recorded for Billy and for Columbia Records that literally sat in the vault until now.
We've said a lot. I don't know if we've always said it, but I've certainly seen it on the Retold page where we've talked about, come on, just start releasing the old concerts,
Yeah.
But he doesn't do it a lot. But man, when he does it, it's always a significant one.
Yeah. And I think that may be the method to it, is because, nothing knocking, your Dave Matthews Band, Pearl Jam, Fishes of the World do release like 4 live albums a year, it seems like sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's cool as well. Metallica does a lot of it too, but it's like there's something to say for holding it back and just every now and again putting out something really cool that nobody's heard before or people haven't heard in years. So this one, there's no custom jackets, but they went with black instead of white, which is a nice touch. And again, this is a 2 LP set. So this isn't just one show. Perhaps that's why it just says a month and not dates specifically. The pressings look strong, solid.
American Music Hall, then that's not a gatefold?
No, it's not. And it's not even a super thick jacket, but they're both in the one slot. But there you have it. That's the full set. Clearly they're setting up for a volume 2, which is going to begin with Glass Houses and go through River of Dreams. And who knows, we may see Fantasies and Delusions on record. And can we plead our case for a Live from Long Island vinyl release or something cool from the next one?
Ooh, well, that would be something.
Yeah.
Because
there's got to be a cool live thing coming for volume 2, right? You would think?
Yeah, and you feel like, by then they had everything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah, Live from Long Island would be the one.
My other thought for volume 2 as well, I know we're going over 1 here, but my thought for 2 is there was a couple of years ago that Friday Music Set announced they were going to release the Russian record on vinyl. This was after the reissue on CD.
Uh-huh.
And they were just like coming next year, and then they never spoke a word about it again. And I asked them, I emailed them or reached out to them on Facebook, and nobody answered me. I'm assuming it got pulled. So I would think that it's going to get included in volume 2. I would hope, since it was an actual release. I know he doesn't love it either, but it's a document in time. It's a historical release. So I wonder if that's going to get, in volume 2 as well.
Yeah.
But volume 1, man, it's really, really well done. I know a lot of people were nervous, not thrilled about the price point, $240 on Amazon and things like that. But, you got to think this is the first half of his catalog. I mean, this, it's not like you're just getting a record or two. This is, his first 6 records, first live album, and then a brand new double live album. So you're really getting a lot of quality, and I can definitely see that a lot of care and time was put into this set. And honestly, if you want to see more cool things come out, it's all driven by sales. I would wager to guess that the Stranger Deluxe Edition didn't do terribly well. So, there was originally going to be expanded versions of the whole catalog. That didn't happen. I, for one, would love to see more of these reissues of Volume 2, certainly, and some interesting new standalone releases. So honestly, the best way to make that happen is to support what's new and coming out there. They're going to look at these numbers and see how well they're doing. And I'm just speaking from what I'm seeing right now, but if the audio is any reflection of the quality of the packaging and the artwork and the jackets and the book, it's a big home run. Well, this was the first. I think this was the first time since you and I started the podcast that there has been a big new Billy Joel release to talk about.
Yeah, you're right.
I, for one, as a Billy fan and as a vinyl fan, this was perfect for me. It was like the Metallica Billy matchup in Vegas. To have all these records beautifully redone, and I can't wait to hear these. I got the box that morning. It sat taunting me on my desk all day, and the first time I looked at any of it was live on camera as we went through the unboxing together.
Yeah.
I wanted to see it and experience it with fresh eyes and have you all hear our first impressions of it. And what you saw and what you heard is exactly that, what we experienced as it happened the first time.
We're not going to get too far into the American Music Hall album because it's not available on streaming or digitally anywhere yet. But we are going to talk about the 2 songs that they released on YouTube already, and those are New York State of Mind and Everybody Loves You Now. Now, the significance of the recording, they did put this to tape for a very specific reason. At the time, Billy had a touring band, but had used session musicians for Cold Spring Harbor, Piano Man, and Street Life Serenade. The touring band, which now included Doug Stegmeyer, was really keen to do some recording themselves. And so management arranged to get these shows recorded as, I believe, sort of a pitch Columbia Records to say, hey, you got to hear, this is the band we need to hear on record. Obviously, that never panned out, and the shows were archived for decades. So what you're hearing is, truly a transitional point. Not only do we have one of the key Lords of 52nd Street members in there, but he's also debuting a song that would then be fully fleshed out on Turnstiles with Liberty, with Russell, with Richie, and of course, Doug. Let's start with New York State of Mind.
I tell you what, with this one, I was really surprised that this song was as fully fleshed out this far ahead of Turnstiles.
It reminded me of Scenes from an Italian Restaurant on CW Post. Now, in that case, for CW Post, they played it. They had not even met Phil Ramone yet, so they hadn't recorded it. But it's there. I mean, obviously, it gets polished a little in the studio, but there are no huge differences in the arrangement or the melody or anything like that. And the same goes for New York State of Mind.
And this was really now the first recorded instance I can think of a prominent saxophone on a Billy Joel song. So pre-Turnstiles, Billy was already priming to have a sax player in the band.
Yeah, that is a bit of a revelation to know he was already thinking in those terms.
It was clearly written with that in mind, as we're now learning with this recording, because I guess I always just kind of assumed that it was something that was decided on as they were working on it in the studio. Like, oh, it would be great to have a sax here. Well, it turns out that was the case all along.
In this recording, it's funny to hear the vocals. The singing sounds just a little stilted. He's not sort of relaxed and belting it out yet. And, it's tough to tell if it was a stylistic change and we've just heard New York State of Mind the way we've heard it for so many years, and so it sounds stiff, or if he was going for sort of a crisper cadence there, and if that was on purpose. But the vocals that's pretty different. The arrangement is pretty much the same, but it definitely still has a bit of a West Coast feel. There's no orchestra, obviously, but you have some little hippie-ish guitar licks, little kind of country-ish, flourishes here and there, and that's something we wouldn't hear once Russell came on board. Drums, Reese Clark is pretty tight on it. Obviously had a very, very different pocket than Liberty, but his pocket here is in fine form.
Great drummer. And it's interesting because the Turnstiles era was like the big shift in the band. We've obviously heard the Lords play a lot of the Cold Spring Harbor through Street Life songs over the years, certainly. But to hear, granted with Doug, but the older band play something that ended up on Turnstiles, so interesting to hear that the other way around.
And so speaking of hearing the Lords do Cold Spring Harbor, we now get the original backing band plus Doug doing Everybody Loves You Now. And what a hybrid arrangement this is. It's the best way I could put it because, of course, on the original, on the Cold Spring Harbor studio version, the opening is all piano. On Songs in the Attic, it's pretty much all guitar. On this version, it's both. You have that fast piano run and the acoustic guitar going at the same time.
Yeah, and actually the original Family Productions version of Everybody Loves You Now, if I'm not mistaken, has the acoustic guitars up in the mix with the piano.
Oh, really?
So it really, yeah, the mix of it is drastically different from the 83 version. And it reminds me more of that.
I want to hear 1 second.
Yeah.
I believe you, but let's see.
No, you should hear it.
Okay, yeah, it's in there, but not quite as much. Right, still right. Piano's prominent. Reese also, does a lot of different stuff on the drums in this. What is it, like either the second verse or the bridge has like a little double-handed hi-hat thing going.
Yep.
He's got a little bit of the raw boom, 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 clock, boom, 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 clock, which of course would end up on Say Goodbye to Hollywood. I really like this version, I have to say. The mix is great because it's not bloated. It's kind of thin in a good way.
This whole show was multi-tracked. They were able to mix it fresh for this release. They got just a great clean recording of this show. It just sounds so good.
So go ahead and let us know what you think. If you picked up the vinyl box set, what are your thoughts on the packaging? What do you think of the remasters? And of course, what do you think of this new live album? If you're at Madison Square Garden on Friday, November 5th, Friday night, a couple of days ago from when we first published this episode, what was your takeaway? What did it feel like walking into Madison Square Garden for the first time and God knows when? Seeing those lights go down, seeing the band take the stage, high points for you, favorite songs, favorite renditions, whatever, man. We weren't there, so we want to know.
We want to live vicariously through you for this night. And are you going to see Billy in Vegas with me in February? Are you going to go see Metallica, the 1-2 punch? I want to know which of my friends are going to be going to these shows. So let me know as well. Let us know. glasshousespodcast@gmail.com as always.
And we're on all the socials under Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast. And as you're surfing those socials, if you happen to listen to us on an Apple Podcast, please take a moment and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review. Every 5-star rating and positive review tells the mighty Apple that they should put us in front of more people. So it's a fast, easy, and free way to help build the community and support the podcast.
Absolutely. That means a lot to both of us. It's an exciting time to be a Billy Joel fan. There's so many great things going on all at once. And I have a feeling that there's some great things on the horizon as well. So we love your excitement. We're excited. And let us know what you're looking forward to coming down the road here.
And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
This is what you want and ain't you proud to say everybody